Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Bell, Chief Administrative Officer with the Crimson Political Action Council, and I'm very fortunate to be with Ms. Jamie Johnson, Missouri State House Representative, District 12 incumbent, pursuing re-election, and a lot of things going on. Of course, historic campaign for Vice President Harris, but
Mhm.
also something else that is noteworthy is the prospect of the implementation of Project 2025. And
Mhm.
I'm glad you're here to join with me to discuss the policy initiatives of Crimson Political Action Council. Of course, we are pro-union, pro-women's right. We believe that women are the sole proprietors of their bodies, uh,
Awesome.
pro-education, public education, and
Mhm.
pro-common man, pro-democracy, and all of those things. And we definitely want uh, the electorate to know that KPAC, what KPAC stands for, is diametrically opposed at every turn to Project 2025. And I know you being a legislator
Mhm.
and being aware of the possible impact, I'm sure there are some things that you would point out in that quote unquote proposal that you would like to
Absolutely.
address. So I'm gonna go ahead and be quiet for a minute and let you let us know how you feel.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. Crimson Political Action Council has been a great endorsement to receive, and I really appreciate your all's support. There's a couple things that I'd like to about in the direction of Project 2025. Recently, as we understand it, renamed Agenda 47 because it is directly linked to President Trump and his agenda and the agenda that the Republicans have pushed for so long since honestly the Nixon years, and it is extremely anti-civil rights. It weaponizes the government in a way that we have not seen before. That has been attempted, but we have not seen before. Um, Project 2025, some of the key points in it is that the authors of it feel that the government is nonpartisan in a way that is detrimental to their agenda. They want to do away with several departments, Department of Education, Department of Urban Housing, Department of Social Security, that threatens the livelihoods of so many people, working class people, or people who are going to be retiring in the next couple of years, people who are already on Social Security, that may be relying on Social Security to help them pay their bills from month to month. That is a direct threat to those folks' livelihoods and all that they've worked for to put into that system. One of the other tenets of Project 2025 is firing civil servants who are not in nonpartisan staff positions, getting rid of the statutes and clauses that protect those folks' right to that civil servant position, and hiring folks who are not qualified. However, they fit the description of being a member of the party that is in power. That is a dictatorship. That is ensuring that there is power and that the people aren't able to speak. We've seen President Trump speak to Christian nationalists, talking about just vote this time, you won't have to vote again. There's two things that I want to highlight in terms of Project 2025. And the impact that it's having that we can see in other countries and in other places in the United States, even. Um, if you want to look at the impacts of Project 2025, you need look no further than the state of Missouri. Recently, the Republicans have attempted multiple occasions to pass a restriction on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. And while Democrats have been able to thwart those efforts with some moderate Republican help, the chilling effect of attempting to pass that type of legislation has been that some of our major universities have closed and dismantled their diversity, equity, and inclusion departments, much to the chagrin of the Democrats in the legislature, of course. And we have voiced those opinions to those higher ranking officials in those universities. Um,
When you look at that dismantling of that department, what
mhm.
what specific impact does it have on uh, students coming from high
Yep.
school or current students or would be uh, employees or
Oh,
of those
absolutely.
institutions? What impact would that have?
In hiring decisions, the university would be able to go outside of where they normally post their notices, hiring notices or recruitment notices, and be able to seek out candidates who will give them a diverse perspective on the type of research we're doing, on the type of information we're gathering, on the type of data we need to gather when it comes to those types of research projects, and those types of things. So, in terms of how it will affect students, students who may be looking for a certain type of scholarship may not be able to find them. Those offices house those scholarship programs that are directed toward children of color, young women, people with disabilities, people with neurodivergence, or who have mental health challenges that would help them get through school or get help them pay for school to be able to get those degrees and advance their careers and expand their opportunities in their
So
lives. So that's a direct impact to both the students and our ability to recruit and retain talented faculty and staff in these universities.
so we're looking at a significant narrowing of access.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
but let me ask you, I'll throw something out at you with the abolishing the Department of Education,
Hmm.
Social Security, that type of thing. Is that a way of saying we're going to privatize everything without saying privatizing, since that word kind of
Yes,
incites people? You think there's a kind of camouflage privatizing of our
absolutely.
institutions?
I truly believe that what we are attempting to do is to apply market forces to public goods. And we've seen that before. This is not new. I mean, we can think about things like swimming pools and higher education. So at one point in this country, college was free, was absolutely free until the Reagan administration, or I guess the Reagan administration when he was the governor of California in the early 70s, the late 60s, early 70s, suggested that in order to get rid of some undesirables, that colleges should charge tuition. And what do we see now is the skyrocketing of the level of debt that people are in just to get a college degree, and the reducing numbers of folks who are going to college for an education. Um, so yes, we are absolutely attempting to apply market forces to public goods to get less access for people of color, for young people, for folks who come from families that may not be able to afford a college education or afford the have the ability to pay for school outright. Um, Again, another example is swimming pools. We can talk about the desegregation of swimming pools. When that judgment was handed down, what did cities and municipalities do? They sold their swimming pools, in some cases as little as $1, to private entities and made them private clubs. Not only did that eliminate the ability of people of color in those communities to have access to a public good that they had paid taxes into to upkeep and maintain, but it also eliminated the ability of um, poor white people to be able to have access to those things that they had also paid taxes to build and maintain. So it ends up being a a system in which you have to pay for something that used to be free and readily available to you, and you no longer have access. And that does a lot of damage, not only to the Black community, but also to
And
lower income communities
it's the
that are
common
not.
man, the
Yes,
common
absolutely.
man.
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit that I've delved into Project 2025. Also, and you can tell me your thoughts on this,
Mm-hmm.
a circumvention, to reduce federal programs. To me, that smacks of it's states' rights without saying
Mm-hmm.
states' rights.
Mm-hmm.
And so, share
Absolutely.
your knowledge of history.
Yeah.
State rights does what to common people, and in particular, minority communities.
Right. Well, again, we can look at the state of Missouri when the Supreme Court decided to retract their decision on Roe versus Wade in the recent Dobbs decision. The state of Missouri, in less than 15 minutes, we had a full ban on abortion in the state of Missouri. No, no exceptions for rape, no exceptions for incest. Only exception was for the life of the mother, and that was spelled out. The language of that was spelled out in such vague terms that hospitals immediately stopped caring for women in that way. There were women who were in waiting rooms all across the country, not just in Missouri, that were in waiting rooms waiting to access those essential healthcare services that were denied immediately upon that decision. Um, in Missouri, we not only have the total ban on abortion, but we also have defunded our Planned Parenthood clinics. Um, in the space of attempting to defund Planned Parenthood for so long, Planned Parenthood actually closed a number of clinics in the Missouri, in the state of Missouri. And so we have communities of color, communities, lower income communities that have less access to health care because of the movements of a political party.
When
Mm-hmm.
you say healthcare, it's not just abortion.
It's not just abortion. Absolutely. Abortion is a healthcare decision. It is an economic decision. It is a family planning decision. But in addition to abortion, you're talking about the closing of clinics that do cancer screenings, that do STI and STD screenings, that do pregnancy, that actually do maternal health screenings and maternal health checkups. So not only did communities lose access to the essential healthcare that is abortion, but also other essential services that provide for the health of the community as a whole.
And the shame
Mm-hmm.
is that these things, and when you have in mind uh, maternal mortality rate
Mm-hmm. Which
and
is really,
infant
really bad in the
mortality,
state of Missouri. Absolutely.
what would be the rationale that you would would not have an exception for rape and incest? What had you ever figured out the rationale for that?
The rationale that I am told from my Republican colleagues is that a baby is a gift from heaven, a gift from God. And while
And
I
so,
absolutely agree that a baby is a gift from God, I have three children. I had the option to have an abortion with all three of my children. I had a choice. And while I made the choice to be pro-life and have all three of my children, even though I was not financially stable at the time when I was having the second and third child. It was hard. It was absolutely a financial decision. It impacted my life. It impacted my financial decision thereafter. It impacted my ability to have different opportunities. So it's not just a healthcare decision. It's not just a family planning decision. It is an economic one. And the rationale that I understand is that the rationale that I believe some of my colleagues see is that they are protecting innocent children. The problem is that they are doing that by overextending their authority to have control over other people. And that is wrong. I do not have the ability to tell another person, another woman to carry a baby. Again, when the carriage of that baby may threaten her life, even,
mhm.
or when the carriage of that baby, when that pregnancy is unviable, and then doctors aren't able to save her life because she has to get XYZ days or hours close to death, waiting for that fetus to no longer have a heartbeat before her health care can be addressed. So it is a very dire situation. We are talking about high rates of maternal mortality for preventable, where we can improve the positive health outcomes. These 75% of those, especially in Missouri, 75% of those maternal deaths are preventable, and we are not doing what we need to do to prevent them because our hospitals' hands are tied because they don't want to end up in a lawsuit, and the language is vague and not clear. So it is impacting us greatly here.
God using a rapist as a vessel to deliver the blessing of life is a bit much
That
for
is
me,
that is a
but
lot to
that's
handle,
that's
especially when we
weird.
are also not funding mental health services. If we are going to require a person to carry the child of their rapist, but then not also providing the very essential and needed and mental health services that they might need to get through the trauma of that, it's evil, honestly. It is absolutely evil and diabolical.
Well, you know, Miss Johnson, we've already shown previously that we can do this all day.
Yes. Let me make one more point though
Yes, ma'am.
about Project 2025, because I think that there's a story that folks are maybe missing. I want to make the comparison to Venezuela. A couple of years ago, Venezuela as a country elected a dictator. And a couple of weeks ago, there was a election. Finally, after years, I think it was about 10, maybe 12 years of having this dictator in place, they finally agreed to an election. Um, when that when the election results, also, let me back up a little bit. That dictator, over the time that this person was in office, about 20,000 of his political adversaries have disappeared or have died mysteriously. And recently, when there was an election, during the election, when the results appeared to be that this gentleman would lose, I don't want to call him a gentleman, that this dictator would lose, he sent what would be the equivalent of our National Guard. He sent troops to the polling places to block access to the vote to those to citizens, and then declared himself the winner of the election. I am fearful, honestly, that if we do not show up and we do not vote and we do not make our voices heard and determine what we want for the future of this United States, we are headed towards a similar path.
It's very hard to argue with that. And on that note, thank you so much. And we will be doing this again. And I
Thank
look
you.
forward to it. You take care of
Thank you.
yourself.
I will. You too.
Miss Jamie Johnson, Missouri State House District 12 incumbent running for re-election.